Sewers are associated with darkness, unsanitary conditions, and danger. They are not always the safest place to work, and many people have reported seeing things that they would not ordinarily expect. This makes sewers the perfect place for urban legends, half-truths, and horror stories to flourish. And some of the most frightening and disturbing stories are associated with sewers, most likely because they provide such a powerful aura of drama. Sewers have even made it into beloved classic novels, such as the celebrated Les Mis, with the protagonist, Jean Valjean, saving a wounded soldier from the ravages of a revolution by carrying him through the Parisian sewers. Of course, that was all just fiction, but here we look at 5 real instances where the world's complex sewer systems have proved to be the perfect hiding place for a real-life horror story. So hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. The sewer alligators. This one is most likely an urban legend with an element of some truth behind it. In the early 1900s, small shops would sell exotic creatures, such as baby alligators in tanks. Wealthy tourists who wanted something a little more memorable from their travels would buy these tiny hatchlings and raise them for a while, before realizing how dangerous and impractical their purchase was, usually resulting in them flushing the creatures down the toilet. Sightings of these discarded creatures started to circulate in the early 1930s, and over time, rumours of massive alligators began to spread. Many believed they had grown to enormous sizes and survived by eating the abundance of rats that lived in the sewers. There was also a theory that the lack of sunlight and time these creatures spent in the dark rendered them colourless, and the chemicals and other waste found in the sewers had caused strange deformities and mutilations, making them look monstrous in appearance. Now these stories do seem a bit far-fetched, however there is an element of truth in them. In 1935, teenage boys found an 8-foot alligator under a manhole. The 2 terrified boys tied a rope around the creature's neck, but when it began to snap at them, the boys beat it to death. The incident does suggest the possibility that there are discarded alligators that have grown to disproportionate sizes that are still living deep within the sewer systems of the world. Babies found in sewers. This one is not only horrific and sad, but also true. Over the years, there have been many stories of people discarding children and babies by throwing them in the sewer system. Thankfully, some of them have been rescued after passers-by have heard their pained cries, and this was the case in 2014 after a newborn baby in China was flushed down the toilet by his mother shortly after his birth. A passerby heard the child crying and called for help. Rescuers took the sewer cover off and found the tiny infant on his back in a pool of water, with his umbilical cord crudely cut. He was rescued in the nick of time, as he surely would not have survived any more incoming filth from a flush. After his rescue, the newborn was rushed to the hospital and survived with just a few minor scratches. Medical staff named him Xiao Xiao, which translates to teeny tiny. It's hard to imagine the state of mind of a mother who flushes her baby down the toilet, but sadly, this is not an unusual occurrence, and not all are as lucky as Xiao Xiao. Sewer snakes. Scary stories involving snakes in sewers are also not just creepypastas, as there have been cases where snakes live and even thrive in sewage systems. Unlike other animals, snakes do not always need to eat regularly to remain alive and well. But sometimes in their search for food, it's thought they inadvertently follow rats into the sewage system. Once there, they can happily live for many years. And one unfortunate man from Thailand had the fright of his life when he used his toilet one morning. In his slightly sleepy state, he failed to notice that a 10-foot python had crawled through the sewers and into the bowl of his toilet. It bit him in the genital region and latched on with its fangs. When rescuers arrived, the man's wife had managed to tie the snake's head and secure it to a door, with the rest of its body still stuck in the toilet. Despite losing a lot of blood, the man made a full recovery, and after dismantling the toilet to free the snake, it was also unharmed and released back into the wild. Take a look at this incredible video of the rescue.
อุ้ยแม่งขดอยู่งั้นเลยเป็นขี้งูอีกโอ้โหแล้วเอาปากมันออกก่อนนะเนี่ย ค้อนหน่อยมันไม่ออกเราต้องทุบ
The tattooed body parts. This one is haunting, but also confusing. In Detroit in 2012, tattooed body fragments were discovered by contractors. They had been clearing a pipe when they found 10 body parts that were on a grate about 50 feet down the sewer. There were no bones and no internal organs, but the remains were definitely human. After being run through a DNA testing, it was thought that the remains were that of a Caucasian woman with a large build, but no other information on her has been released, and her identity is not known. The tattoos are thought to have been on her skin for around 20 years. Viewer's discretion is advised, but take a look at the tattooed remains, as although this was a few years ago, the lady has still not been identified. Sewage plant murders. What makes this story so horrific is the callous way the victims were discarded into the sewage system. In the 1970s through to the 1980s, a sexual predator killed approximately 7 young boys, aged between 11 and 18 years old. They were all from the Frankfurt region of Germany, near a place where prostitutes frequented. It is likely that this is where they met their murderer. Their corpses were found in and around the sewage system, and all of them had their hands tied behind their backs with a cord. The first victim was the only one who wasn't thrown into the water. He was also the only one not to be identified, although it was established his cause of death was a blow to the head. It's thought after the killer murdered his first victim, to continue killing he had to find a way to dispose of the bodies, and the sewers was the perfect place. What is horrific is that it's unclear whether the other 6 victims drowned in the sewage or also died of head injuries, as their bodies remained undetected until they were eventually flushed into the sewage treatment plants, where their remains often clogged the screw pumps used to separate solid waste. The advanced decomposition of the bodies also hampered the investigation, and meant it took years to identify who they were. The offender, who has never been caught, is thought to be a deeply disturbed individual, who after violating his victims, cruelly dumps them into the sewage system. It's also possible that they are still alive and continue to commit these heinous crimes. So that's 5 truly disturbing horror stories involving sewage systems. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.